Welcome to Stu's Wrestling Podcast, Episode 4. Have I got a treat for you this week, guys? It's Brawlin Bo Cooper. He's well known in the Southern California area for pro wrestling. A veteran of the sport, he's paid his dues over many, many years. He's been in the business for over 20 years. It was an absolute pleasure to get Bo on. It was just an absolute brilliant interview. It flowed so well. We get on great as well, which helps matters. I've been in contact with Bo for many years, so it was just cool to get a veteran on, someone who's been in the ring, knows exactly what it takes to be a wrestler. It was just fantastic. So yeah, here we go. Without further ado, Brawlin Bo Cooper, Episode 4. Enjoy, guys. It is my pleasure and honour to have American veteran wrestler Brawlin Bo Cooper on the line today from Southern California. How's it going, Bo?
Hey, Stewie, man. Thank you for having me. It's going good out here. A little gloomy today out here in Los Angeles, but it's a nice day, and it's a pleasure to have myself on your podcast, man. It's been a while. I'm glad we got it sorted out, right? We always miss each other with time.
I tell you, I'm trying to get so many guests on, and it's just people don't have time, do they? To it's getting spare time to do things.
Yeah, it's with a full-time job now that I'm not trying to make a career out of pro wrestling anymore. It's hard for me to sit down and talk, but I'm glad we got the opportunity to, man, because I know you're passionate.
Man,
to be on the show.
I'm a fan. You've got to be a fan, haven't you? And first and foremost,
anyone claims that they're not a fan of pro wrestling, they're lying to themselves, because you got guys that are saying that they're not fans. They just do it for the fame and money, but they're fans deep down. I think the only one that wasn't a fan was probably Ultimate Warrior at one point.
Well, we heard all the stories, didn't we, about him backstage and how he was. Yeah. But yeah, he was a mega star though.
Oh yeah, he was my favorite growing up as a kid. He was
mine too, mate.
Rubbed it all over my face,
He was mine too. I was more him than Hogan.
Really? Yeah. Me too, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Just the energy. He was awesome. He was awesome. Right, Bo. When did you first start watching wrestling? That's the first question.
Well, when I first started watching wrestling, I was really young. I remember watching it on the TV, just browsing through on Saturday mornings, and I remember the cartoon came on around probably 1996, 97. 86, 87, because I was probably 8 years old, at the time, and I looked at the cartoon and I was like, wow, this is cool. So then I remember telling my mom I want to watch, WWF or whatever, and she found a station and let me watch it, and I really dug it. I remember my first match I ever witnessed live. I think it was Hercules versus Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and then I was like, wow, this is so cool. These guys are larger than life, and then I kind of got a little older, and I started playing with other action figures, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I kind of grew out of the whole wrestling thing for a little bit, but then I started watching it again. I remember it was I want to say it was Survivor Series. Undertaker versus Hogan was the first pay-per-view I remember specifically watching, and I thought, wow, this is so awesome, and it brought back a spark, for me to really become a fan. I was probably about 12 then. I was 12 or 13, and I just became an avid fan, and I told my mom, I wanted to start going to all the shows out here locally at the LA Sports Arena. She used to drive me down there to the local house shows, and we'd go and watch, and it was just a good time, and then I remember sitting in my living room probably when I was about 13, 14 years old. Well, I had to have been 14. No, I was about, well, let me go back a little bit. I skipped a whole section there. So when I was 12 years old, I remember going to the WWF house show, and I was standing in the outside waiting for all the wrestlers to come in, and there was only probably about four to five different fans there, because it was super early. And I remember a bunch of no-name wrestlers were coming in, and they were just getting their gear bags out of their trucks. I didn't recognize any of them, but I remember yelling to one of them, "Hey, I want to be a wrestler too." And he walked over, he took the time over, and he said, "Hey, if you're serious, kid, here's a phone number, you can call." And my mom, obviously, because I was a minor, she grabbed it. She said, "Okay, well, thank you, sir, we appreciate you." So I was all excited. I said, "Mom, this guy gave me a phone number to call." So when we got back home, I called the number, and it was Bill Anderson's wrestling school, and that was in Southern California. And he said, "Hey, I'm a little too young to train. Call me back when you're a little bit older, kid." I said, "Okay, well, that sucks, but I'll call you back." So about a year later, I was listening to a local podcast TV show, kind of like a network, local network thing called Shadow Man's Wrestling Circle, and he was mentioning a wrestling school that was opening up called the School of Hard Knocks in San Bernardino. So I was like, wow, this is my chance, you know. So I called the wrestling school. I spoke with Jesse Hernandez, and Bill Anderson was actually an owner there as well. So I traveled down there on a Saturday morning with my mom, and I got there and I looked around, and they said, yeah, we'll accept you as long as your parents sign a waiver. So I signed a waiver, and here's the funny part about this whole story is that the first day that I started training, which was that day, my mom paid the money, and I said I want to be a wrestler. I was only 14 years old. Louis Spicoli, that's the gentleman that I saw at the WWF show. He's the one that wrote down the number.
I remember Louis.
Came to that school.
Yeah,
he came to the school that day, and he remembered me. So it was almost like it was meant to be.
Yeah,
I was there, the timing and all that, and Louis was cool, and he taught me a lot, growing up in the business, and I always looked up to him because he was the first person to actually take his time out and contact me, come up to me, and after I yelled his name, and I said, hey, I want to be a wrestler just like you, and then we were off to the races, man, and I started training, and I had my first pro match in 1996.
Who was the first pro match against? Can you remember?
Yeah, I remember. It was at the anniversary show for the Empire Wrestling Federation, which was the School of Hard Knocks, the same school that I was teaching at. It's their promotion, which they're still going strong. They're actually having their May 23rd, they're having their anniversary show. My first opponent ever, believe it or not, because I was a big kid. I was 6'1", probably at the time, probably about 290. And I remember wrestling this big old 355-pound biker guy with no teeth, long hair, big old hairy back, and he dressed like a Harley Davidson guy. His name was Crazy Casey, and I was scared shitless, but at the same time, he was a nice guy to me.
Yeah.
He knew that I was a kid. Well, he knew that I was a kid. He knew that I worked hard because I trained for 2 years, and I got my ass kicked. I got concussed. I got I broke my hand. All this happened within 2 years. And my mom's like, "Are you sure you want to do this, kid? Because you're getting beat up in there with a bunch of adults that are sweaty big men." I said, "You know what? This is what I want to do. Nothing's going to stop me." So they wanted to make sure that I was fully trained and ready to get out there and wrestle. And they gave me they threw me to a guy who was, a scary gimmick, but a really nice guy at heart, because he took no liberties on me, and we went out there and had a really good match.
There was a level of protection. Yeah, which is what a lot of guys didn't do, did they?
Right. Yeah. Nowadays promoters will just throw anyone with anyone, and it's like, I earned that spot, and it was, someone that took care of me, even though I was scared to death. He told me, "Hey kid, just listen to me. Let's go out there and have fun." Plus, when I first started wrestling for about 2 years, I was under a hood. I wore a mask because I had a baby face. I had long blonde hair, and I had a baby face. Because I was only 16, but I had a big body but a big baby face. I smiled a lot, so they put me under a hood. They called me the American Hangman. So it was like an executioner gimmick. I came out in a dark cloak and all this other cool stuff. But it was their idea. Obviously they wanted to protect me, because I don't know if that was because they didn't want to embarrass themselves if I fucked up, or if they.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to cuss on here? I apologize.
I was asked this question. I've got a referee in this country coming on. He asked me that. Yeah, you can swear. There's no. It's fine. It's fine by me.
I don't need to, but I just sometimes slips out.
No, it's fine.
I'll keep it to a minimal, Stu.
Yeah, that's fine by me, mate. You're telling the story, so it's all good.
Yeah, I just get worked up,
How long did you work for that company then?
Well, the Empire Wrestling Federation, man. They're my home, and I wrestled with them probably straight for about 6 years. I didn't go anywhere else because I was just learning and engaging and becoming better. And they had so much opportunity because they've been around for so well. My trainers were but Jesse was a WWF referee. Bill Anderson was a WWF ring announcer. Both of them have wrestled in WWF. So it was one of those things where they had a lot of connections, and they would do outside bookings. My first time I ever went to Tijuana and wrestled in the main event, I was probably 17, 18 years old, only 2 years, a year into the business, and I was sitting there wrestling guys like, Honky Tonk Man and Los Brazos, and I was Doink the Clown Man in Mexico, but I continuously still, here and there wrestle for them. Obviously my injuries have taken a toll, so I don't do it too much, but my partner and my student right now, he is been wrestling for them as well, so it's cool to turn the legacy onto him now.
Yeah, of course.
His style, it's come full circle for me.
it's good that you can live it through him as well. Yeah, that's nice considering. I can't believe it's crazy that it was 2 years of training. I thought you would have been in there a lot quicker.
Well, you know what? I mean, I don't know if it, like I said, I don't know if it was because I sucked, which I probably did. I didn't know what I was doing because I was a kid, and there was guys in there that were, going 100 miles an hour and being wrestlers, and I was just, and they had to slow down a little bit and teach me the right way. Because I'm not gonna lie, man, I was nervous as shit because I was a minor, but they, no one. I never got liberties taken on me and got my ass kicked, but they kicked my ass pretty hard to make sure that I was in there. You know what I mean? No one beat me up to the point where I was bleeding out my eyes or anything, but they were rough on me. And it's they said, okay, kid, well, you're in our world now. And if you want to become one of us, you can come back next Saturday after we give you a couple chops and give you a couple stiff, clotheslines. But, guys that were teaching me when I was breaking in the industry, like Chris Daniels came from Chicago into our school, and he was fresh on the scene trying to break, his name out here in California, and he was training with us, so he taught me a lot. I mean, I give a lot of in-ring credit to him, teaching me how to do a proper planting positioning, to do a leapfrog, or, how to carry yourself, light up for a body slam. And guys like, Bobby Bradley, who was Rob Van Dam's tag team partner in Japan, taught me how to take no BS from anyone, just go out there and have a hard-hitting, match and stuff. So, there was a lot of different people that I looked up to, breaking in. But 2 years definitely, they wanted to make sure that if I did go out, and I was a student of theirs, they wanted to make sure I was polished, and I wasn't hurting anyone or myself.
Right, okay. So you had some big, obviously they're big names now, but there was a lot of people passing through. You say Chris Daniels.
I mean, I don't mean to cut you off, but I'll make a quick point. Nowadays, if someone says, "Hey, man, we're going to make you a pro wrestler within 2 years," people would probably laugh and never come back. Because a lot of people are entitled now. They want entitlement. They want it right away. And I did too. But I think that my trainers were testing me. Nowadays, people will go out there. They'll go to a school, they'll pay $25 or whatever, and they'll train for a couple months, maybe 3 months, and then they'll think in themselves that they're professional wrestlers, and they'll go out and get booked because promoters nowadays don't give a shit. They just want to book guys, that are cheap, and they don't care if they're ready or not. They just want to, fill their card up, and it's completely changed, because back then when I was wrestling, you had to earn a spot, you had to pay your dues, and you had to make sure that if you were out there on a card with guys that were, somebody. You need to make sure that, they're going to respect you just as much as you respect them, but things have changed,
You've got it, like you're saying, it's that element, it has to be safety, but, us as fans, we don't really know the inner workings, do we?
Yeah, I mean, nowadays, I think it's become a lot clearer to fans. You got fans nowadays that are, setting up rings and becoming referees rather than, and I mean, shit, even some wrestlers are becoming, even some fans are claiming to be wrestlers because, like I said, they go to the wrestling schools and they learn a couple moves, and then they think that they're the superstars and they can go travel and do things, and it's there's no principle anymore for telling these guys, hey, you're not ready. You have to be, at least in my day, adoned to say, you're ready to go out there and perform.
Yeah.
Now anyone can just go out there and perform if they want to, and that's partially the promoter's fault. Though I don't know how it is over there in the UK, but there's so many federations across California now that are just saturated with guys that just aren't
ready.
I mean,
ultimately, they're not ready.
I'm not taking a knock on these guys because if they were throwing a ring and saying, hey, go ahead and wrestle, I would probably do the same damn thing, because I was eager to get in the ring, but I'm glad it took me 2 years.
It was for the best, wasn't it? From what you're telling me, you were not put in a position where you...
100%.
Which other promotions did you work for? Did you come out of California?
I traveled to Colorado. I worked for Rocky Mountain Championship Wrestling for a guy named Blind Mike. That was my, out of state. That was one of my first out of states shows. I had a good time out there. I wrestled for Arizona Rowdy Wrestling Federation. I got the chance to wrestle Superfly Jimmy Snuka and Honky Tonk Man out of that federation. Two main legends that were one of the biggest memories I got were wrestling those two guys. In front of 400 people out in Arizona, which was awesome. Taught me a lot, and that was when I was already probably 10 years into the business. I had to wrestle those guys, and Man, it's a different story when you're wrestling veterans that have been there for 40 years, in the business. So, I got to wrestle in Tijuana twice, which was awesome. Like I was telling you, I got to wrestle in Mexico, which was fun. Learned a lot down there as well because big old gringo like myself going to Mexico and trying to get heat, man, it's a different type of heat, I'll tell you. A lot of independents around California. I won a lot of championship titles. Got places like All Pro Wrestling, Central Coast. They produce a lot of guys. They're the ones company that produced like what's Holly? What's the other one? Not Bob Holly. I forget. He passed away. I can't think of his name. What's his name? The Hardcore Holly's partner.
Oh, Crash. Mike.
Crash Holly. Yeah,
what was his name? I'm trying to think of his real name. I'm normally good with the names, though. I can recite the names.
He was a talented guy, man. I just can't think of his name at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sad that he passed away. But that was the company that produced him, All Pro Wrestling, and then
right.
I won titles for a company called Alternative Wrestling. They've been huge. They're still going. Bart Kapowski out here in California. He books a lot of women's shows now, which are awesome. But just multiple federations that gave me a shot.
Yeah.
Because my whole thing was, I'm a big dude, but I could move. It was one of those things where I wasn't just the typical powerhouse where I just sit in the ring and body slam people. I like to work, and so a lot of promotions, and plus me coming from a school like the School of Hard Knocks, it gave me a reputable name to go out there and say, hey, look, my name is Brawlin Cooper, Jesse Hernandez,
trained you.
So it's good to have a good school behind you,
Good on the old CV. Good to have it
What's that?
Good to have it on the CV, like obviously when you were going to work in other places, I suppose.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Bo, what do you think of the current scenes? Worldwide now. Because I read a lot about wrestlers not selling correctly. What are your thoughts on that? The art of selling.
That's the art of selling is what fans came to pay their money to see. If you don't give the fans someone getting beat up in front of you, then they're going to be disappointed, in my opinion. I want to see someone get beat up to the point where I have a little bit of mercy for the guy, and then have the underdog come back and make a big comeback and kick the guy's ass at the end. That's at least what, as a fan standpoint of view, that's what I'd want to see. There's a lot of good wrestlers out there, man, that do 100-mile-an-hour high spots, which are fun to watch. Don't get me wrong. I pop on that sometimes myself, but my whole thing when I'm teaching my students now is, you got to pick and choose to go 100 miles an hour. You got to slow it down a little bit and interact with the crowd. You got to sell. You got to show facial expressions from the moment you get through that curtain all the way to the end of it. Because if a camera zooms up on you when you're taking, a pin on someone and you're going for the pin and you're just sitting there with no emotion, it doesn't look good. But if you have that leg hooked and you're sitting there with your teeth, showing and you're struggling, you know what I mean? That's the whole beauty of it, where you're trying, you're trying. And if you're getting your ass kicked in the ring and you're not selling for the guy, it's just disrespectful to him. And it makes you look like you're a no good superstar that's too good to be in there with someone. So it's, like there's guys nowadays that are local that they can do a cool high spot, but there's no noise. It's like literally move after move after move after move after move, and they're not making any noise whatsoever, or even stopping to let the crowd realize what they just witnessed and even to give you a pop. They're just going from one spot to the next spot to the next spot, and it's like, dude, slow it down. Let the crowd interact and absorb what you're doing in front of them. And that's how you get your pops. At least, like if me and you went to go out there and did a little high spot real quick, and I had got over on you, I would stop and look at the crowd and talk some crap,
Yeah, there's time.
Or raise my arm at least and get a pop,
Do you think they rush? Do you think these young people rush the matches these days? What are your thoughts?
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
There's no. Bruce Pritchard told me, man, when I had my little tryout in front of him, he said, just remember out there, less is more.
Yeah.
Less is more. And I probably was like, yeah, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it, but let's go out there and rock the house and do, but it's just mentality now, man. These kids, they want to get over and do a whole bunch of shit, which is cool. I appreciate hard work, but it's like, you gotta, like I said, let the crowd absorb it. You gotta have interaction. You can do cool high spots, but pick and choose when, because I feel, like you said, they rush everything right away, and they try to go out there and just do a million spots without even having any psychology, really.
I'm not a worker, am I? I look at it from a fan perspective, so it's just good to hear from you guys in the industry.
Do you agree?
I agree with what you're saying. Yeah. But you know.
I mean, well, let me ask you. What do you think when you see, guys going 100 miles an hour with no, do you enjoy that type of wrestling? They go.
I don't think they know how to tell the story within the moves and stuff. If you know what I mean. I'm going back to like when Bret Hart was in there. Bret Hart's still my favourite of all time. And just Bret, it was just just had a meaning behind it, especially when he was fighting Austin. And I think the feud of Austin could have gone longer. It was cut short for me. They know how to tell a story. It made sense to me as a fan.
Because they went 100 miles an hour when they needed to, but then they slowed it down and let Austin get his big heat, you know.
Yeah, and look how it turned Austin. It was the makings of Austin, wasn't it?
Yep, absolutely.
I just don't know.
Good stuff.
I just don't know. It's. I don't think they know what they're doing. Some of these young, not saying all wrestlers don't know what they're doing, but I'm not sure.
I agree with you, man. I mean, because. Well, like, once again, and I'm not saying there's not good trainers out there anymore, because there's a hell of a lot of good schools and trainers, but, I can think of a couple places where the wrestlers are running the locker rooms rather than the promoters and the teachers that have taught these guys should be run, and that's one thing I always give respect to when it comes to my old federation, EWF, Empire Wrestling Federation, because, you would never, ever be able to shot call what you want to do. The promoter's going to say, hey, look, this is your gimmick. This is what we want you to do tonight. This is what you can and cannot do. Go out there and tear the house down for us. We appreciate your work, and we want you to come back. You can't just go out there and say, hey, opening match, I'm going to do a hurricane run off the top rope to the outside. You're going to no-sell it, give me a flying forearm, beat off the apron, and then we're going to go into an arm bar and have you tap out right in the beginning of the match.
Why?
And there's a... What's that?
Why is it gone that way where the promoters don't lead and tell you what's going on? Why has that happened? Why is the talent dictating what's happening? In your opinion?
I mean, honestly, I think that it goes back to the industry being a little bit more exposed now, and it goes to where there's not a lot of principle when it comes to older vets taking charge and saying, like, look, kid, you show disrespect, we're going to kick your ass in the ring. Because, I mean, it's just the whole, and it's not even in wrestling, it's the whole generation of new, millennials. I mean, it's these kids, and a lot of people just don't have a lot of good attitude. A lot of kids are cocky nowadays, and I don't know where it comes from, if it's their parenting or what, but I just know that when I was 15, if I walked into a dressing room and I tried to act like a big shot, I would have gotten my teeth knocked out in the ring. But to answer your question, I think that it's a lot of non-discipline. I think there's a lot of fans that are trying to become pro wrestlers. They pay $25 or whatever the cost of the school is. They train for a couple weeks or a month or 3 months, and then they get gear made, and then they claim, well, now I'm a wrestler because I got booked on this show because he's booked. They see other people doing it, so they think they can do it.
It's not.
And there's no one telling them. Yeah, there's no one telling them, look, you're not ready. And
it's not that simple, is it? If it was that simple, we'd all be doing it, wouldn't we?
Right.
I just think, like you say, people have a pipe dream, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to come to fruition, does it?
Right. I mean, everyone has a dream. Everyone wants to, be a wrestler. But in my opinion, if you're going to give something, give it your all. And I'm not saying that you have to go out and travel all the world, but at least, try to make a name for yourself. Try to get, good gear. Try to be trained properly to the point where you have someone to look up to and that ordains you as a pro wrestler, because anyone can call themselves one, but it takes a lot more than a couple flashy moves and some good wrestling gear to become a wrestler. You have to tell a story, like you were saying. You have to, want it. You have to be, you want to be around the business 24/7. You want to learn from guys that you've never wrestled before. You don't want to just wrestle your friends here and there on a Friday show or something. You know what I mean?
I get you totally. Bo, just to go off topic here, who were some of your favourite wrestlers growing up?
Well, like we were discussing when we first, I don't know even why he became the first thing we talked about. Was Ultimate Warrior. You know, I always catch myself, you know, if I'm just doodling or something on the phone, you know, if I'm bored, I always draw his little Ultimate Warrior symbol. I was really intrigued by him as a kid. He was probably the worst wrestler that ever stepped in the ring, but his whole presence. Well, I mean, no disrespect to Jim, man, but I'm saying, like, you know, in-ring talent wasn't the greatest, but his presence and his colorfulness and his lively, you know, bigger-than-life character really made an impact on me, you know, as a kid growing up. I mean, I remember cheering for him at WrestleMania 6 because I was a kid and I loved his, you know, the whole thing that he was going to take down Hulk Hogan because Hulk Hogan was so, you know, not forced on us, but he was the only thing we ever saw as a kid growing up usually is Hulk Hogan, Hulk Hogan, Hulk Hogan. So when this other powerful guy came around and said, hey, well, I'm going to beat Hulk Hogan, you know, I said, okay, great, I want to see this, you know?
Yeah.
And then, you know, once I got into the business and I started realizing there's a lot more than just gimmicks and looks, there's a thing called work rate. I really loved watching Shawn Michaels, you know, of course, even when he was, you know, part of the Rockers, I remember watching him more than Jannetty because he would, you know, do the high-flying, energetic stuff, but I loved Owen Hart. Owen Hart was always one of my favorites. I actually
should have been world champion.
Yeah, man, he should have beaten Bret for the title a long time ago. I mean, they should have done that whole gimmick where he became world title or world champion. You know, yeah, man, Owen Hart was a big influence. And then if you want to talk about bigger guys, you know, I was always a Bam Bam Bigelow. Mark, I loved him. You know, so I took a lot of my moves and my look and my whole, you know, Rude Cruden tattooed off of his persona because he could move like a
he was unreal.
I mean, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but back in the day I could move like a cruiserweight.
I've seen matches on YouTube, Bo. I have over, you know, the last few years.
Thanks, man. I appreciate
it. You're agile for your size, mate. You know, deceptive. So
yeah, I appreciate that.
You know,
yeah, man. So guys like Shawn Michaels, you know, Owen Hart. I loved Kerry Von Erich, man. He was always in Texas Tornado when he was in WWF. I was always a WWF kid. I never really watched a lot of, you know. I mean, I did when they were on TV, but I never went out of my way to go make a point of watching, like, you know, NWA/WCW.
Yeah.
But if you want to go that era, man, I mean, I could always talk about. I liked turning on TV and watching, like, you know, the Road Warriors. Obviously, were huge in my opinion back in the day. Tag teams, I like Demolition, you know, so those two teams were always great and cool to watch as a kid. But yeah, man, I mean, it was one of those things where, I mean, the generation of wrestlers have come and gone, you know, where there's not a lot of characters anymore. So that's another thing too I miss, you know, is watching really awesome characters, you know, and some of them were gimmicky, some of them weren't, but you know, I think that was what made wrestling special. You know, you're getting out of your element, you're watching guys that were, you know, dressed as a weird freak, you know, kicking another guy's ass, you know.
Yeah, it was.
What about you? Name your top 5
of all time. I'd say Bret is my favourite. I think he became better on the mic when he was heel. His promo work got better, I thought, but obviously it was leading up to him going to WCW, wasn't it? So I don't think we saw. He should have stayed there, man. I was gutted when he went there, and obviously. It didn't work out for him, did it, in WCW?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see. I didn't see anything, you know, coming really fun out of that whole storyline they did with him, you know, with the WCW.
It was just there was too many. They got too many stars in, didn't they? Basically.
Yeah,
there was too many stars there.
Just flooded.
Second favourite. I've got there's so many. I liked Flair, but I appreciated Flair more when I got older because obviously I hated him as a heel, but that was what he was meant to do, wasn't he? You were meant to hate him. But yeah, I appreciated him. Million Dollar Man. I liked Ted DiBiase when I was younger.
There you go.
Mr. Perfect. Kurt Hennig was unbelievable. Another guy who could have got the world. He should have got the world title.
Yeah, I agree with you.
He was unreal.
Was one of my favorites as well.
He was unreal what he could do, and he was ahead of his time, wasn't he?
Yep, he definitely was. He could sell like the best of them and get the most heat, you know.
Tag-wise, it'd be Legion of Doom, but I also like Demolition, and I met Demolition at WrestleCon a few years back, so that was cool.
How were they? Were they cool?
But Bill Eadie was amazing. I think I freak smash out a bit, but I am a bit intense. So Barry Darso was a bit. Maybe I got the wrong end of the stick. He was probably all right, but Bill Eadie was gentleman. So was Barry Darso, but I just think I freaked him out a bit. I was maybe a bit too intense. I get it.
Yeah, you're scaring guys, Stewie.
I get excited. What can I say? But yeah,
you're seeing your childhood, heroes in front of you.
Out of the current crop, I like Hangman Page. From Ring of Honor. Obviously, he's gone to AEW now, hasn't he? Adam Page, he's a talent. Jay Lethal, I love Jay Lethal.
Jay Lethal, yeah.
Unreal. Like, he's done so well considering where he was with TNA.
Is TNA still even going right now?
Yeah. They're still semi going, and there was a bit of buzz behind it, wasn't there? Because obviously Don Callis is there, isn't he? And Scott D'Amore, they're all trying to reinvigorate.
I haven't watched wrestling in so long, man. I mean, I'll flip through the channels, if I'm, but I don't really even watch television that much anymore, man. I mean, I'll watch Netflix, but it's like go out of my way to watch wrestling, not because I don't appreciate everything. It's just I don't really have the time, and I'm just, so a lot of the promo, it's just a lot of the product now, man, just doesn't interest me, man. It's just a lot of talking, It's like there's no in-ring fun anymore unless you're, guys doing the cruiserweight stuff. So I mean, I don't know. I haven't watched TNA in years. I didn't even think they were still on TV.
They're all, I'm trying to think who covers it. They were with Anthem. Is it Anthem, the channel over there? I can't think. But they did.
TNA or TNT was the one that covered it before, I think.
They did really bad. They drew a really bad number about a month and a half ago. Apparently, there was like a really low viewership. Because they were hoping to turn the corner, and the in-ring product's like a lot better. They were getting somewhere, but the viewership was terrible. Because I think they need like.
I'll tell you, I think they need. What were you gonna say?
They need like a top channel to come in, don't they? Like a massive channel. It's always like smaller channels coming in for them.
Yeah, but I think they're doomed, man. Because I think the next biggest thing that's going to happen is my boys, the Bucks, are going to take over the wrestling world, which they already proved they could at, that pay-per-view All In,
Yeah.
Those guys are phenomenal. I'm really happy for Nick and Matt, man. I've known them since they were literally backyarders in their wrestling ring, and I'll never forget telling a promoter, man, I was backstage at a show, and they came just as normal gear, and they wanted to come say hi to some of the boys, and the promoter wouldn't let them backstage, and I said, hey, man, you better take notice of these kids, because they're going to be something one day, and he's like, we'll see, and then, it's like, now look at them,
You could just tell
AEW...
You could tell they had star power.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, they're so talented, And then they got guys like Cody backing them, and their whole segment online has just been genius because people, they're doing their own promos and they're making their own online TV episodes, and it's like people follow that now, and I was hooked too, man. I was watching their show and I was like, this is so good, man. It makes you want to watch the next episode,
I've seen bits fleetingly. I've got some Bucks t-shirts actually. Karis,
you have what?
Young Bucks t-shirts. I've got a couple.
Oh, t-shirts.
Yeah. The missus doesn't like me wearing the wrestling t-shirts, but she just has to put up with it. She's on about sending them to the charity shops. I've told her no chance. I can't let go of the wrestling.
Yeah, well, she should respect it because it's been something that you've watched since you were a little mate, right?
That's it, mate. That's it, right, Bo?
Don't let any woman change you, man. Especially into wrestling, man. If you love wrestling, you love wrestling. Don't let her change you, man. I'm sure she watches reality shows or something, right?
Yeah, women love reality shows. That's their thing, isn't it? Right, Bo? I'm gonna have to cut it short, mate. My tea's on the table.
You got it, brother. It was an honor and a pleasure to talk with you finally, man. I'm glad we got a chance.
I've still got more stuff to ask, but I'll obviously when you can do it. I know you're busy.
No problem, man. We'll catch up maybe in the summertime.
I'll get you back on, mate, because I could talk to you for hours.
You got it, brother. Ditto with that, man. Enjoy your tea and continue to support Brawlin and independent pro wrestling.
Thank you, man.
Make sure thanks, buddy. I appreciate you, man. And let me know when this airs.